Do we get intro music? We don't get intro music, do we?
I add that later.
Oh man, I was gonna like acapella this thing. Ain't no love in Oklahoma. What's up, everybody? Listen to Luke Combs on my way in this morning. Welcome to the Wings on Katella podcast. Same group we had last week. That is not the initial plan of this podcast, but same group we had last week. I am Taylor Blake Ward, managing editor for the Sporting Tribune. Everyone with me is associated with the Sporting Tribune, starting with Zach Kavanaugh at Zach Cav. That is with C's, no K's, on Twitter. Zach covers the Anaheim Ducks for the Sporting Tribune. Zach, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. You know, could be better. USA Hockey, big loss, but we'll rebound. Milan next year.
Taking the headlines. Zach Kavanaugh stealing the headlines right off the gate. Thomas Murray covers essentially all of Orange County, and apparently he covers Rancho Cucamonga for us too at this point. Thomas, we'll talk about that a little later. Sure. How are you doing, Mr. Thomas Murray?
I'm doing wonderful. It's Friday. I can't complain.
Attaboy at Thomas_L_Murray on social media. What does the L stand for, Tomas?
Just my middle name. I have a common name, so to kind of make my Twitter name simple, let's just add that initial in real quick.
Real quick, before we get to Jack, Zach, what is your guess on what the L is for Thomas L. Murray?
Louisville.
Dang. That was really good. I was going to go with Leonard. Jack Janes covers the Angels, among other things, for the Sporting Tribune. Also out of Arizona State. What is that? Arizona. What's the paper you work for there, Jack?
I write for the State Press and Walter Cronkite Sports Network.
That's the one. So Jack Janes at @JackJanes_Jack. How are you doing, and what is your guess on L for Thomas L. Murray?
I'm doing good. A little sad about Team USA, but overall it's good hockey, so can't complain there. L, we'll go Levi. A little off the board.
I like Levi. All right, Thomas, give us the spiel.
Do you want to take a guess?
I already did. I thought it was Leonard.
Oh, that's fair. You did say that.
Leo.
No, it is Lee.
I got part of it. Yeah. You can't spell most of Lee without most of Leonard.
I like to joke that I was named after Tommy Lee, but
attaboy. Oh, that's good.
Go.
Well,
yeah, it's a fun one.
You're screwed for the rest of your life because you're going to be Tommy Lee Murray for the rest of this podcast. So, all right, boys, let's talk the big picture here. Last night we are recording obviously on Friday. Today's Friday, right? TGIF. Friday the 21st. So USA Canada last night, Four Nations tournament. I'm gonna go on a rant just real quick. I had no expectations at all for this tournament. I thought it was gonna be a snoozer. I thought it was gonna be boring. Dear God, I was wrong. This was the most entertaining thing in a long time when it came to sports, and not just for those that enjoy hockey, because I love hockey. Hockey is probably actually my favorite sport. I cover baseball, but hockey is my favorite sport, and I had people constantly that they've never watched a hockey. You know, my sister-in-law calls me. She says, "Hey, did you watch a hockey game the other night?" And I'm like, "Which one?" She's like, the hockey game. I'm like, okay, so USA Canada is the first game, and I couldn't believe how much hype there was to last night's game. And props to the National Hockey League. This was genius. This was beautiful. Good on the National Hockey League for putting this together and making it work. The problem is, I don't think you can top it. You've got to go play in Sweden and have Sweden win this thing kind of thing for them to top it. This was amazing. Last night, the introductions alone. I mean, TD Garden going off, Bell Center before that going off. It was great to have this event going on in the local areas where the teams play. Canada comes out with a banger. Wayne Gretzky is their honorary captain, and USA comes out with Mike Eruzione. I mean, like, you can't top that. You absolutely cannot top that. I'm not a political guy. I'm not a big patriotic guy. But the fact that President called this team, you don't get a lot of opportunities to talk to the President of the United States. And regardless of your opinion on who that is, and I won't even say his name so that we don't push any political thing, it's very impressive that the President was even commenting heavily on this. He kind of made it a little political, which I don't want to talk about, but remarkable that...
It certainly added to the
fervor
around the game.
I don't... We can talk about that aspect, but I don't really want to get into politics because...
No, of course not.
But I just think this was an absolute thriller. We're going to trash some people, and I'm not someone that really does that. But before we talk about the crappy side of both of these things, I want to give a shout out. Chris Rooney, one of the referees in last night's game, he lost his mother in mid-January. He was one of the referees last night. He is the youngest of 11 boys. His mother was 92 years old when she passed. That was a really well officiated game. Referees did a great job. They let everyone play the game. I thought they did a great job. So Chris Rooney, we're going to talk highly on you, but let's go to each of you guys. What was your thoughts on the Four Nations? Jack, we'll start with you on this.
It was awesome. I agreed that like going into this tournament, I didn't know what to expect. I thought guys were just going to kind of mail it in a little bit and wasn't going to be as intense. And then obviously that first Team USA versus Canada game that set the tone and set the expectation moving forward. It showed that these guys actually cared. So it was just so much fun to watch. Even though I was rooting for Team USA, obviously, like just watching those two teams play together, like I could watch that every single night, regardless of the result.
I agree. I'm going to get into it, but these were two of the greatest hockey games I've seen in a long time. Thomas, your thoughts, real quick on Four Nations.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed just the whole process of it. I think we finally got an all-star game that was competitive of some sort, right? Everyone was kind of comparing that to the NBA all-star game and the NFL's Pro Bowl that went on like a week before. And just how competitive this whole thing was and just sense of pride that people had playing in it. It was awesome. Outside of baseball, I think, those are probably the best two all-star style games that are going on right now.
Yeah, have to agree with that. Zenk, big thoughts here.
I mean, as everybody said, loved it. I think it just sort of shows how hungry these guys were for best on best international hockey, because they hadn't had it in 5 years or 9 years. They'd been left out of the last two Olympics. The last time we got anything like this was the World Cup of Hockey, and that was good for what it was, but it was also a thing where they added in these two conglomerate teams like Team North America, Team Europe to sort of fill it out. Whereas this, they boil it down. You get two sets of rivals, Sweden, Finland, US, Canada, and you kind of let them go at it. And yes, it was an exhibition, but even the Ducks guys I talked to who weren't there, the guys that have played for their respective Canadian American national teams, when they put the flag on, they just want to beat them. The US wants to beat Canada. Canada wants to beat the Americans, and to see that at that level with these guys, this generation of American players who have never gotten to play a best on best international, whether it's Austin Matthews, Jack Hughes, whatever, it was great. It was awesome. The ratings show it. I put all this in the story I wrote yesterday when I talked to some of the Ducks guys, but it was from that 2016 World Cup of Hockey. The total audience from US Canada was a 203% increase from the last US-Canada game in that competition. It was more than any non-Stanley Cup final game since 2014. The American broadcast alone for that game was 4.4 million viewers, which was more than every game of last year's Cup final except for Game 7, more than every game of the 2003 Cup final, and it beat out the NBA All-Star Skills Competition, which everybody routinely panned, as Thomas mentioned. So just a great thing. These guys were pumped to get back out there for best on best, and I think you see it in the crowds, you see it in the TV ratings, you see it in the regular people talking about it. Yes, I do think the political machinations in the greater world led to a greater sense of importance put on the first US-Canada game and certainly the second one, but you can't beat 3 fights in 9 seconds to get people hyped about watching your game on a Saturday night. I think that'll bump up the numbers a little bit.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, you mentioned it. There is a patriotic aspect to this and a political aspect because of what occurred in the first game, prior to the first game, and what occurred prior to the last night's game. A lot of things that just created this environment. And for me, personally, these go into, I think, the 3 greatest hockey games I've seen on a big scale. All of them are international play. All between USA and Canada. Last night for me, maybe a top 3 game. Maybe Saturday night's game last week, top 3 game. mix between the atmosphere, the build-up. We'll talk a little bit more. But second greatest game for me, USA Canada in the 2018 Pyeongchang Olympics, the Lamoureux sisters, women's hockey.
Okay.
Gold medal game, last minute post. Both goalies playing out of their minds. That is one of my favorite games. And obviously, for me, the greatest game, and it sucks because I lived in Canada for a very short period of time in my life, but I have lived in the United States for the majority of my life. 2010, USA versus Canada, Zach Parise, what was it, 9 seconds left? Not even, it was a 0.9 seconds left, something ridiculous.
Yep.
And of course, Sidney Crosby, golden goal in Vancouver. But that's the greatest game I've ever seen, and this goes up there with it. One thing I want to mention, and this kind of goes into contrast to this, there is a large debate about who the greatest American hockey player is. I have my opinion, but there is a small consensus that believe Austin Matthews is the greatest American player. That's a load of crap. Austin Matthews is nowhere near the greatest American-born player in the history of hockey. I'm sick and tired of hearing what superstar Austin Matthews is when consistently he falls flat on his face. Last night, he drifted off. Connor McDavid alone in the slot. Connor McDavid, we'll talk about this too with Connor McDavid, but just Austin Matthews, I'm not going to say he lost the game for USA because he didn't, but he sure created an opportunity for the greatest hockey player in the world to score with no one with him. Guys, it pisses me off. Austin Matthews is obviously a very gifted hockey player. He's very good. But to say he is the greatest American-born hockey player in the history of hockey is egregious. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on this.
Are you hearing people say that? Like, I think he's maybe the best player right now. I don't know about of all time quite yet. He's certainly not a Patrick Kane or anything like that.
I've seen people put that down. John Buccigross. I love John Buccigross, but John Buccigross is so...
He's a little over the top.
It doesn't matter. I've heard other people say it too, and it pisses me off.
That's
Austin
crazy.
Matthews falls flat on his face. Toronto Maple Leafs sure are doing well in the playoffs, boys. Wow. We talk about the Maple Leafs every freaking July because they're golfing. I'm sick and tired of Austin Matthews being talked about as a superstar when he falls flat consistently. And I think about...
The thing that sucks about that too, I thought he was very good defensively most of the night. The people that do these analytical rating scores... He was the best American forward defensively last night until the very moment where it mattered the most. And he didn't get a whole lot of help from his other guys that were kind of drifting off or not covering for him. But still, you don't leave Connor McDavid alone in the slot, especially right off a face-off where you're probably supposed to be sticking with him. I think he was invisible offensively all tournament. As good as he was defensively or on face-offs, whatever you want to say. Offensively, he was sort of non-existent. I think he ended up with 3 assists. He assisted on the first Brady Tkachuk goal. But yeah, it's he is a prolific goal scorer, no doubt. But the winning edge is something that some of these guys don't have, which is why I thought when he got paired up with the Tkachuks during the game, that sort of made him better, because you have these guys that are willing to bash everybody's face in for the sake of the flag, the win, anything else.
Well, they have heart, and I just don't think Austin Matthews cares. I really don't. And maybe I'm just dogging this guy for no reason. I just don't think he has
You could tell by his hairline, yeah.
Jack, Thomas, any thoughts on just Austin? I want to talk about just USA in international play, and we're going to focus. I mean, World Juniors, they do fine. Tournament-wise, they do okay. But just Olympics and high-end scale, we'll talk about it. But what are your guys' thoughts here? I mean, am I crazy for thinking that Austin Matthews is egregiously overrated?
A little bit. I mean, he's still really...
Oh, that's right. No,
good.
Jack is living in Scottsdale.
I'm not in Scottsdale. But I mean, look, even removing the Arizona thing, I like to pump up his tires because he's an Arizona guy. But, I mean, the points weren't there. It's a results-based business. But it's not like he was bad this tournament. He was still generating scoring chances. They just weren't going in. I can't remember what game it was, if it was the opener against Finland or whichever game it was, but he hit like 2 crossbars in a span of like 2 minutes. So he was getting his chances. They just weren't going in, and sometimes that just happens in hockey. But yeah, you can't leave Connor McDavid wide open. It's like giving Prime Barry Bonds a BP fastball. So yeah, that's my take on Matthews' tournament.
Thomas, anything to add?
I'm actually surprised that you've seen that people are saying Austin Matthews is the greatest player ever. I've seen more. Maybe it's Sidney Crosby passing the torch to him.
Well, American born Thomas.
Mm. Um, I don't know though. I mean, I know my hockey knowledge is really limited, but I wouldn't say he's the greatest to ever do it. Just gonna kind of go with that.
He's not even the greatest one from Arizona, man.
Who would you say?
Matty.
Tkachuk's a good player.
He's a Stanley Cup winning captain.
I know.
Man.
I understand that, but Austin Matthews is a better player. Overall, he's a more skilled. Like, I guess here's the difference. Austin Matthews is more skilled. Austin Matthews can score. Austin Matthews is a very good. His passing is elite. His defensive work has gotten a lot better. Is he grittier than Matthew Tkachuk? No. Is he a better leader? Inarguably at this point, no, based on the Leafs and even, last night. But to say that he's bad, I don't think is right. I think I'm trying to figure who like a comparison would be, but he is extremely skilled. I think there's no doubting that. And as far as putting him on the par with the best ever American players, the fact is he hasn't won, whether it's at a team level or an international level. I couldn't put that on him. I think when it comes to greatest American players, you're looking at your Patrick Kanes, your Mike Modanos. Even if you want to go goaltending, we'll throw in a Mike Richter. But it's Brian Leach. If you want to go defenseman too, it's not. I wouldn't put him in that conversation at this point. And anybody that is, I think, is just very much a prisoner of the moment, or in John Bruchagross's case, hyping up the product that he broadcasts.
Here's my thing on the Maple Leafs thing. Austin Matthews is far from the problem that the Maple Leafs have year in, year out.
I know.
Like, they are not losing playoff series because of Austin Matthews. It's not Matthews' fault. They don't have a blue line or steady goaltending ever until maybe this year.
They figure out how to not score goals in Game 7s, and he's a guy that could score a goal once in a while.
But yeah, I mean,
Matt Tkachuk is averaging 85 points per 82 games. Austin Matthews is 95. I know it's a 10-point spread, but when you're playing with John Tavares among Mitch Marner and others...
But what's the goal scoring? What's the difference in the goals average?
It's about points, man. Setting up goals, too.
Sure. But
I could score with Mitch Marner on my side and John Tavares on the other side. I think I'd do fine.
I knew you were. You said you were going to open up. Yeah, you said you were going to open up a can of hate, and this is certainly up there. I think this is too much. He's a very, very good player.
Well, a little chump needs to shave his little gross mustache too. Either way,
he was named the captain of this team for a reason. Like, I don't know how they name the captains of these things because it's a short tournament and you guys are together for like 2 days, but he got named the captain.
Well, I'm not looking forward to next Olympic break. I'm not looking forward to next year if this is what the heart of American hockey is Austin Matthews. Apologies for the jump cut there, ladies and gentlemen. This is a PG-rated show, and I kept it PG, right? I didn't cut.
If there's any foul language or anything.
Yeah, I don't know where Thomas is going to make that edit. I have no idea where he's going to make that edit, but I probably right after I talk about Austin Matthews' mustache.
Oh, I'm going to study this rant like crazy and cut it.
This quote-unquote 20-minute rant about Austin Matthews suddenly is chopped down to a minute and a half. Just look at the Team USA 1980, and this is just the Olympics. 1980, obviously the greatest moment in sports history, especially if you were American-born. 1984, Soviet Union wins. USA does not medal. 1988, Soviet Union wins. USA doesn't medal. 1992, the unified Olympic team, a.k.a. the Soviet Union, Russia, wins. Gold medal. USA does not medal. 94, Sweden, USA doesn't medal. 98, Czechia, USA doesn't medal. 2002 in freaking Salt Lake City, Utah. Not sure if you know that or not. It's in the USA. USA did medal. They won the silver medal. Guess who? Canada. Lovely. On that 2002 team, Chris Chelios, Bill Guerin. I did text Zach last night to remind me about Bill Guerin. Huge Bill Guerin fan as a kid. Massive Bill Guerin fan. Brett Hull, Brian Leach, Mike Modano, Jeremy Roenick, Keith Tkachuk, Doug Waite, Mike Richter, just to name a few on the 02 team. 2006, Sweden wins. USA doesn't medal. 2010, we already mentioned. USA silvers to Canada. 2014, Canada wins it. USA doesn't medal. 2018, Olympic athletes from Russia. USA does not medal. 2022, Finland. USA does not medal. Boys, I'm not looking forward to next year's Olympics if Austin freaking Matthews is the captain of Team USA at the Olympics.
Taylor, I
Zach.
need you to calm down.
It's
can't stand
going
it.
to happen.
No, half of those Olympics you listed didn't include NHL players. To be the first.
So
one.
what?
Hold on. Secondly, is Austin Matthews supposed to play in an Olympics that he's not in? That he can't. That he's not eligible.
Are we not playing? We're not playing NHL players next year.
We are.
Round 2, baby.
I'm saying previously, like you're mad at.
No, I'm not blaming Austin Matthews for losing the US. I'm not blaming.
Okay. Well, it sounds
I'm not
like
blaming
you are.
Austin Matthews for losing since 1980 when the guy was born in like 92 or 93 or whatever.
Well, I think the other thing about what you're saying is you can list off the history of USA hockey, and yes, at the Olympic level they haven't done well. They've done increasingly better at the junior level, especially over the last decade in World Junior tournaments. And I think that fruit is starting to come to fruition here, or the seeds are starting to come to fruition. This is the best American hockey group that we've ever had. Like in all those other Olympics, they're gonna lose to, yes, they made the gold medal game as Canada. You know who's on that Canadian team? Like, come on.
No, but
Mario Lemieux, Chris Pronger, Joe Sakic, Scott Niedermayer. Like, you want
I guess Niedermayer
Brian
would have been on
Leach?
that O2. Yeah, Niedermayer would have been on that O2, huh? Brian Leach played for the USA, man.
Brodeur, freaking who was in net? It wasn't Patrick Waugh because he wasn't told he was going to start all the games, so they've let
Had to
Marty
have been
Brodeur go.
Brodeur.
Yeah,
Had to have been Brodeur.
Rob Blake, like, for God's sakes, like they're not going to beat that team, even if it is in Salt Lake City.
So
I
you're
think-
telling me Zach Parise captaining Team USA in 2010 is going to put Sidney Crosby in his place? Look at what the 2010 team was compared
Yeah,
to the
and
2010 Canada roster, and they were one shot away.
and they were one shot away last night.
Yeah, that's true. Either way, Matt Tkachuk way
Like,
better than Austin Matthews.
Over the course of the Four Nations games, the U.S. had the better goal differential. Canada nearly shit its pants against Finland.
Zach,
Like,
you
come
and Tom.
on.
Now, you and Thomas might know this. Trevor Zegras did not make the roster based on the injury. Is that accurate?
He was never going
or-
to make it.
Really?
No, he's just not been good enough over the last 2 years,
that's
even
fair.
with the injuries. He has to do a lot more to get consideration at this point. I mean, like even Troy Terry played in one of those Olympic games as a collegiate guy. He was been a junior star, but he's points production wise, he's better than Zegras at this point, and he's not sniffing the roster right now
Yep.
either.
Trying to remember, Ryan Donato was the 2018 captain, I think.
I think so.
They use college kids. So, hate doing this to you, Jack. No Coyotes out on either roster. So,
Didn't
or
expect
Arizona.
to see any Coyotes.
No Arizona Coyotes on the roster.
Point
We
being,
talked about it.
well, I think you can still be
Junior
excited for
Coyotes,
next year.
What's that?
As a junior Coyotes, though.
There we go. I'll take that.
I
Austin
think
Matthews,
you'd still
right?
be. I think you'd still be excited for next year because again, this is a pretty damn good group of players, and they're only going to get better if you give them a year of time. And if anything, they use this tournament as motivation to say, "Hey, we." And I think it should be motivation for USA Hockey because I think some of the things that they do is they long have been focused on picking the right guys rather than just simply picking the best roster possible. Canada doesn't worry about that. Canada puts Crosby, McKinnon, and McDavid all in the same power play unit because they can. So just throw out the best guys. And I think Jack Hughes needs to be better. If we're going to point out like an American that needed to be better in this tournament, somebody like Jack Hughes needed to be better.
Jack Hughes just doesn't have the sitting hype that, well, he did for a while, but not the sitting hype that Matthews did. But I agree, Jack Hughes needs to step it up. And
for your Canucks bias,
whoa.
They'll have Quinn Hughes next year. If
They
he's
will have
healthy.
Quinn Hughes.
So I think that would be a difference maker too.
That'll help. They had
Soft spot.
They had JT Miller. JT Miller played very well. You guys mentioned
punched himself in the face in that fight. That was
that's
really
the way
good.
to do it, man. You guys mentioned it. I mean, do you think the NBA All-Star Game could do something like this? Do you think the NFL, the Pro Bowl, there's no way the Pro Bowl is ever going to come back to any form of great. Throw Pat McAfee at linebacker. Like that's the only reason. That's the only way you could get the Pro Bowl to be anything. The Pro Bowl's a joke, but NBA All-Star game, outside of, I think, Kobe Bryant was the last guy to care about that. And sadly, Kobe Bryant's been dead for 5 years. I just don't know what, can the NBA All-Star game make this a world versus USA? And is it going to even matter at that point? Are they going to care? The world would care, I feel like. Is the USA going to care about that?
I saw Giannis recommend that, and I really kind of like the idea of it. I think, if the world actually beat the crap out of them, a year for like the first time or second time or so, like, hey, maybe from the American side they would actually care, and then we might have something competitive. I think that's a good thing to attempt, though. I mean, what do you have to lose at this point? The All-Star game is just a disaster. We went from scoring from like almost 200 a year or two ago to like this. What, I don't even think both teams scored 100 in the last 2 weeks.
They set like a target point total now, so there's not like it's not like an actual game. It was just I think it was first to 40 in each one of those games.
I'm not a basketball guy. I'm really not a basketball guy, and I'm trying to think who would play on the world roster. You mentioned Giannis. What would it be? Jokic, Giannis, Wembanyama.
Wemby would be coming off the bench behind Jokic,
and Doncic.
You'd probably include the Canadians like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah,
right?
Jamal Murray's Canadian.
Well, there you go. Jamal Murray's Canadian?
Yeah.
Did not know that. See, like I said, I'm not the biggest.
Canada in the Olympics.
So, talking about the greatest American hockey.
Well, I think with the basketball, sorry. I think with the basketball, they could do it. I just don't think it matters as much because they've been playing best on best international for a long time. They've had the Olympics. They a lot of these guys play in those FIBA World Championships too, and I just think, it would work for a little bit, but I just don't think the NBA players care enough. There's too much of the load management, too much of the trying to. I mean, LeBron pulled out an hour before the game or whatever it was. There's not the same competitive level for an exhibition.
No, and I wasn't going to bring this up, but I used to love the Winter Classic. I absolutely loved it, and you can't top the one that happened in Buffalo? The snow game with the shootout with
the very first.
It happened in Buffalo. Yeah, I really don't think you can beat that, and that's the whole point. I don't think you can beat this first, Four Nations tournament. It's gonna be tough, but we talked about the potential of the greatest American hockey player. Who is the greatest American hockey player for you guys, by the way? I'm going Brett Hull.
Right now or all time?
All time. I don't even want to worry about right now. Right now is Matt Tkachuk. That's the answer. Sorry. I hated Matt Tkachuk up until last year. So I'm going to go either Brian Leetch or Brett Hull. Those are my two.
I guess it depends on what you're including. If it's just
I think
NHL or international.
Brian Leetch altered the position of a defenseman in a sense. When guys like Nick Lidstrom and other guys like that were a big part of that, I just think it's incredible what Brian Leetch was capable of doing. So I don't know. Zach, you're thinking deep. Jack, you got a thought process? Thomas, I see you looking.
You know what? I'm going to be honest. I don't think I should give an opinion.
Because it's Austin Matthews.
No.
No. That's fine. I appreciate it, Thomas.
Who'd you say, Taylor?
I said either Brett Hull. Brett Hull is probably the greatest forward. I think Brian Leetch is the greatest defenseman. And I'd go probably Johnny Quick is the best goalie. Oh, even over Richter.
No Ryan Miller?
He's up there.
I'm a big Ryan Miller guy.
I got no bone. Ryan Miller is one of the nicest guys on the planet too.
Yeah.
I think.
Mike
go ahead.
Modano's really good too.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go.
No problem with that.
As forward, it has. For me, it's Modano. Just like Hull as an incredible scorer, but I think Modano does more.
I think he had more points.
He was a complete player.
Hull had more points.
Hull had more goals. Did he have more points?
I'm checking that right now. Hull's got 1391 in points.
And Modano's 1374.
Oh, okay. So barely.
Yeah.
They're like the same.
Yeah, they're the same.
But Modano also played 200 more games.
That's fair.
So, and that's just NHL stuff. And then when you include the international, like those guys were contemporaries. They were on the same World Cup and Olympic team, so kind of the same. I think if the NHL had been able to play in more Olympics during his time, I would have picked Patrick Kane.
But that's fine. I mean, that's fine. Last thing on the hockey note, and we're talking Four Nations. Connor McDavid. obviously the overtime winner last night, establishes himself. He does not have a gold medal yet in the Olympics, or no?
He never
does
got to
not?
play in the Olympics. No, the only
Yeah.
international competition he played was the World Cup of Hockey, where he was put on Team North America.
So
not
this
even
is
on the Canadian team that year.
There's a broad opinion on my end. Is Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time, and you're competing for number 2. I think LeBron James has separated himself as the second greatest basketball player of all time. And there's arguments to be made and everything. I'm fine with having that argument. But Wayne Gretzky is viewed as the greatest hockey player of all time. If Gordie Howe is at least in the conversation, those two are in the conversation together. Does Connor McDavid, is a gold medal the only thing keeping him from saying he's the second, third greatest hockey player ever?
Got to win a Stanley Cup.
He does have to win a cup.
It probably has to win like 3 cups.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the most talented player I've ever seen in my life, undeniably. I know the game has changed and everything like that, but Connor McDavid, I got to see Gretzky very late in his career. I was young, very late in his career. I've seen some great hockey players. Connor McDavid is the best hockey player I've ever seen in my life. And I can stand on top of that. I've seen Ovechkin many times. Ovechkin's one of my favorite players. He's probably my favorite player ever. But I really think McDavid is the best player I've ever seen. Curious your guys' thoughts on this. And that includes Sidney Crosby as well.
I mean, McDavid, he's got a shot at 2,000 points in his career. Because he's at 1,053 right now, and he's 27, 28? He just turned 28. Just turned 28, he's already at 1,053 points. Everyone thought that Crosby had these injury problems and concussion problems. Well, he's, 37, and he's still going at an elite rate. So who's to say, if Connor McDavid stays healthy, he could very well get over 2,000 points in his career. And it's going to be hard to say he's not the second best player that ever lived.
Yeah, my thing with it's always going to be tough to unseat Gretzky. It just based on the fact of you take away all the goals he scored, his assists are still the most points of all time, which is the most incredible part of his scoring records that will never be broken. Yeah, McDavid, he just has to win. That's the bottom line of it now, is he's clearly on the trajectory with the points. He just and they got to Game 7 last year and all that, but he has to break through and win. I think winning with Canada is easy. Winning gold medals with Canada isn't the toughest thing in the world for these guys to do. If Connor McDavid went pointless throughout the tournament, Canada probably still could have won the, whether it's an Olympics or World Cup or whatever it is. Well, we see him the most in the NHL, and he's clearly the most dynamic player I've ever seen. I think the thing that stood out to me, I went to the All-Star game the last time it was in, and they had the fastest skater competition, and he won it by a mile, of course. And it was just the thing of that guy is so damn fast. And you saw it in the first USA-Canada game where he just blew by the defense and with ease backhand score. And he makes the Ducks look silly every time they play. Just the way he manipulates a defense is crazy. But he needs to win. And, there was a lot of put down about Alex Ovechkin for a long time, and now that he's coming up in the goal scoring record, he's the greatest goal scorer I've ever seen. He's not the greatest player, but best pure goal scorer. And if he was playing against the goalies that Gretzky played against, then he would have broken the record already. If he didn't have a season and a half taken out due to a lockout, he would have broken the record already. But he's also won a cup, and I think he's been an unquestionable leader for that Capitals team the entire time he's been there. So I think all that mixed into the soup, you just gotta win if you're McDavid at this point. The points will come, the MVPs will come. He'll have all of that stuff. You just gotta win.
And are we, Thomas? Real quick, just a thought process.
Yeah.
Nathan McKinnon has a Stanley Cup. We do not talk about the greatness of Nathan McKinnon because his dynamic profile. Whatever PK talked about with the greatness last night, we're skipping over that. I don't care. Nathan McKinnon is one of the greats. You mentioned the word dynamic. This guy that is impossible not to watch. And when he turns it on, there's
bull.
When he turns it on, I actually don't think there's anyone better. And that includes McDavid. McDavid's just on more than McKinnon is. That's the one thing I would say. But when McKinnon is on and McDavid are on, I don't think there's a massive gap between the two. So just a quick little thing, because McKinnon scored that goal last night. There's no way that shot should not have made it through. Thomas, I'm sorry for jumping on you, man, but I know you mentioned Crosby earlier. What are your thoughts here on this little debate?
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of agree with what Zach was saying. At the end of the day, we judge athletes by being great, by how much they win, and winning rings and all that. That's why we say Patrick Mahomes is on his way to beating Brady to become the great. 2 weeks ago we were saying, hey, he might be better than Brady because he was about to get a three-peat, which is something that Brady never did in sports. LeBron James, we used to trash on him. We used to say he wasn't even the second best player in basketball until he won a title with Miami. And then he went and did everything he did in Cleveland and won one in LA. And now it's like, okay, hey, he actually might be the greatest basketball player to ever play the game. And it's still up for debate between him and Jordan. But at the end of the day, the thing that we always talk about with great players is how much should they win. And yeah, Zach makes a good point that he hasn't won yet.
Fair enough. I appreciate everyone staying consistent and not talking about Austin Matthews during that span of time.
I was going to bring him up too.
I figured you were.
Quick. It's kind of funny because him and McDavid had complete opposite games where I thought Matthews looked pretty good all the way until that one last moment. Whereas McDavid in that game last night, it's not that he wasn't noticeable. It was just kind of like he wasn't himself and he wasn't playing up to his standard. And then he gets the golden goal.
So it happens in Boston, man. Boston, Mass. I'm mean because I grew up in New England. No, Noah Khan sang that song. I'm
baby.
On a rant. I think we're done with hockey, boys. We're going to transition. I should have mentioned this at the outset of the show that we were going to talk about the Angels and baseball. First things first, Zach. Do you know that you and I can play for the Yankees now?
Yeah. No, well, it has to be well groomed.
Oh yeah,
I gotta take this in a little bit.
We're disgusting. We're
well groomed.
I think you guys are fine. I don't know.
Yeah,
No, cats and dogs living together, man. The Yankees changing their grooming policy. It's incredible.
Yeah. Good on the Yankees for finally doing that. I put a picture up, no context, of Jeter and A-Rod and beards with Babe Ruth and Gehrig as well. So, let's talk Angels. Key headlines this week with Angels. And Jack, you're still out at camp, out in Tempe. Games are going to start depending. Thomas, are we going to have this episode up tonight? Do we know?
Yeah, I'll get it up tonight.
Perfect. We don't even have to edit that. Games start tomorrow, from what I remember. Jack will be out there. Big note this week, to start the week, was Mike Trout saying that he's going to move to right field. And it sounds like, based on what Perry was saying, it sounds like this is not going to be something where he gets reps in center field. It sounds like right field is where he's going to play the rest of time. Jack, take us through this, just a little bit of what your understanding of this is and what you think it's going to do for the Angels. Because we're going to have to talk about who's going to play center field for them as well.
Yeah. Perry Manassian told us throughout the winter that he was been having conversations with Trout about where they're going to play him up the coming season. And he said that it was a two-way conversation, and then they said they're going to meet the day he reports, and they're going to sit down, figure it out for good. They both agreed on right field, take the stress off. It's the smallest part of the field at Angel Stadium, so it's less running he has to do. Although, in my own personal opinion, I don't know how much that's going to change things because he's still out in the outfield, running around, and you know the way he plays. He always plays full speed, so he's going to be running full speed all times. So, how much of a difference is it going to make on his health? I don't know how much of a difference it'll make. I guess time will tell. But Ron Washington also said he's going to get some DH games too. He didn't specify how much it's going to be, but I think that they're going to figure it out on the way as the season progresses. And Trout even said he's going to be very open with the training staff and with Ron with how his body's feeling and what days he needs a DH or maybe a day off here and there. But that's where he's at with right field.
Have you ever played at Angel Stadium?
Played, no.
Okay. I haven't either. Thomas, Zach, have you guys played baseball at Angel Stadium at all?
I didn't play baseball growing up. But...
So that's a no.
No, yeah. I've covered the high school games there, but that's the extent of that.
That's fine.
My high school is the only one that didn't play in our district.
I was going to say, the only thing I can think of, and the reason I bring this up, Jared Timms, a good friend of the show, good friend of mine. He is the co-host on another podcast, so we won't mention that. Jared mentioned to me how he thinks it's more challenging to play center field at Angel Stadium than anywhere else because of the backdrop. When the ball is traveling to center field, it's hard to pick up with the way the stands are. I don't know. I've talked to players. I talked to Joe Adell, who has not played center field at Angel Stadium, and I also talked to Chad Wallach. It's kind of during shagging or anything if it was tough, and he had actually interesting thoughts about catching at Angel Stadium. But I figure right field would be hard because at that 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock start, that sun is a dead shot right into right field. You mentioned it, Jack. I don't know if this keeps him healthier. I don't know, but I don't know what else you could do. That's the other thing. I don't know what else you could do. So, Zach, Thomas, any thoughts on Mike Trout moving to right field at all that hasn't really been touched on?
Yeah, I agree with Jack. I don't know what it'll do. I mean, it's still good that I think, sure, move him out of center. I was kind of hoping it would be left field. I feel like right field sees a lot of action, especially that, he still might be making some, kind of be forced to make some, trying to make some like jumping saves on some home runs because they have that lower right field wall now versus back in the day when I was growing up, it was all the way at the top and sometimes you couldn't make those robberies or anything like that. The thing with Mike Trout though is that interests me is just all of his injuries, they've never happened from playing in the defense. It's all been on the base paths or at the plate. So I don't know exactly what that'll do for him. If he can't stay healthy, the only thing that I could think of for him is does he kind of go the Bryce Harper route and become a first baseman later on in his career?
Yeah, I guess I don't. I also don't know what the issue would be. Like, I guess we'll talk about this when we get to who's going to play center. But if it's about, you think that Joe Adell has more defensive range than Trout does right now, I guess that's what it is. I mean, obviously the big leagues is not Little League, but Little League is you put the kid that can't field in right, because they're not going to be doing a whole lot. Or is it left field? It doesn't matter. Point being, like, yeah, he's going to be diving into walls. He's going to try to make diving catches. He's going to have to leap. Like, it's not going to alleviate his athleticism that much, covering less ground left to right maybe, but I never thought that Trout had declined defensively in that regard. So I don't know, just make him a DH if you're worried about him injuring himself in the field. If that's what the case is, make him play DH. But yeah.
And this is a thing where this is strictly Mike Trout was always fine defensively. He wasn't a Gold Glove winner, but he was fine in center field. But the Angels just don't have a guy that can truly play center field and also bring value. Mickey Moniak 2 years ago, I think he had 115 weighted runs created plus. He was dealing with injuries, so it's a little smaller sample. Last year, he had like a 266 on base, like a 70-something weighted runs created plus. Joe Adell, 90 weighted runs created plus. That part of that is 20 home runs. Improved defensively. I think the only thing I would say is if you're platooning center field, have guys that can play center field for sure, for certain. And I know Mickey can. The problem with Mickey is he is a left-handed hitter who isn't really all that great against right-handed pitchers. He's not bad, but he's not great. So the free agent market this year was very in particular corner outfielders. It was very much a corner outfield market. The trade market was corner outfield. Everything was corner outfield. There just wasn't a center fielder to bring in outside of Harrison Bader or Cody Bellinger on the trade market, and I don't think you matched that. So I don't know. Zach, you mentioned it. Joe Adell could play center. Mickey Moniak could play center. Thomas, I think you have a thought process, and Jack, you and I mentioned, or you might have mentioned something last podcast where we talked about shortstop. There might be a reason we might not be having Luis Rengifo play shortstop. He's getting reps in center field. Does that sound right?
He's getting reps they didn't say where, they just said in the outfield. In fact, I was writing in on it today. When we were talking to Washington and Rengifo a couple of days ago, Washington said we're going to work him at second base and third base, and then once he's got his legs under him, we're going to send him out in the outfield and see what he can do. Rengifo was like, as long as I'm in the lineup, I don't care where I am. So he really didn't have strong thoughts on it, but Washington seemed to believe that he could at some point help out in the outfield if need be.
Fair enough. Thomas, who do you think should be manning center field here?
It's tough. I don't know if it should really be Rengifo just because he is an infielder at the end of the day. I think he brings a lot of value in the infield, ability to play third, short, and second base, move around to different spots. And then, when you occasionally need him, sure, throw him into a corner outfield position, but to put him in center, that's That's asking a lot. Jared kind of does make a good point because once you said that, he was talking about the different like angles over there. I was kind of visualizing, imagining it to myself, and I'm like, yeah, it could be a little hard just because of how that like weird corner is over there. Right center is a really tricky area, and I think that could definitely be a little hard to play as a center fielder. At the end of the day, though, the center field position, it's going to come down in spring training to between Adele and Moniak. Both of them are pretty good athletes. They're both, have pretty good speed. They were both drafted into baseball as center fielders. The only reason I think maybe Moniak gives them an advantage is just because the Angels don't have a left-handed bat, and, you have a left-handed bat in the lineup a little more often. But you make a good point, too, Taylor, where it's not great against right-handed pitching, so...
Well, and Taylor, you mentioned too, like if they're going to platoon guys, it seems like you have 4 guys that can all play pretty much any one of the outfield positions, and they could all play at any point. So I think it's just going to, I don't know if anybody's going to have to solidify themselves as the guy, because I don't think they'll do that. Like they have the ability to rotate through, and if you're going to give Trout some days off in the field and play him at DH, then you're going to have to play all 3 of the other guys anyway. If you want to change it up for lefty righty hitter, then you're going to have Maniac and Adele swap in and out as it is. So it's a bad, not a bad problem. As I always relate these things just because I'm still in Ducks brain, but like the Ducks have the defensive issue, right? Where there's 7 defensemen for 6 spots. Right now you have 4 outfielders for 3 spots. Somebody's going to get the short end of it. And are you going to like who that is at the end of the day? I don't know. There's reasons to play everybody. So just rotate them through, I guess, I know this doesn't really answer your question of who should play center field. Everybody should play center field. But yeah, that's kind of my thought, is that it seems like it's open to everybody.
And one thing that makes this complicated is the acquisition of Jorge Soler, because he's primarily DH now, so that eliminates the DH spot for Mike Trout moving forward. And I don't think they were ready to make Mike Trout a primary DH at this point, but it is nice to get Trout. I was thinking maybe like 1 game a series. You get him at DH and then 2 games out on the field, but I don't know how likely that is now, because obviously, Soler is not the greatest outfielder in the world. So, but yeah, with Moniak and Adele, it's tough because they're both just, they haven't found it hitting wise. Moniak's fine defensively in center field. Adele finally was league average in right field, and now they're gonna move him to center. I don't know how that's gonna go right away, but I guess we'll see. So yeah, it's just a weird situation.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jorge Soler, and he can't play the outfield, man. But at the same time, I want to give him 150 days at the plate. Out of 162, I want to give him every single day if I can, I have that opportunity. So it's going to be tough finding those reps. Jack, I know we only have you for another 5 minutes or so. I said we were going to do a half-hour podcast. This is turning into an hour podcast because of Austin Matthews. Another reason not to like the guy. Sorry.
That's your fault, man.
I know, it's my fault. Another reason.
What does he have on you? Did he like run over a dog or like what?
Oh no, he's got nude pictures. Everyone does. That pulled a
you
trigger.
Want me to edit that?
No, it's fine. I don't care.
All right.
On that note, last thing, we're not going to talk about Arte Moreno talking to the media earlier in the week.
Why not?
There was no surprises.
What? That it's not his fault?
There was one surprise. I did have one surprise.
All right, go ahead, Jack. What was the surprise?
The one surprise I had was when he was talking about how people were blaming him for the lack of success the Angels are having, and he said it's probably right, but he tried to say, I give this person money and I can't play the field, I can only give him money. What I was surprised at was he name dropped Mike Trout.
Yeah.
He said, I can give Mike Trout all this money, but I can't hit for him. That took me by surprise. If he said Anthony Rendon, I wouldn't have really thought anything of it. But to say Mike Trout, the guy who's been that loyal to your team and has been like the only person that's really made it clear that he wants to be here, that just took me by surprise.
That's fair. That's totally fair. We can touch on that one on the next one. I mean, he talked about Angels are expected to lose $50 to $60 million this year. Look, I'm no financial expert. I don't have his finances, but I don't think that's true. He talks about that $25 million of revenue sharing. Not sure if you guys know this, but every team has a pretty heavy duty dosage of revenue share money that goes into the market. Yeah, I get what you're saying, Jack. He did name drop Mike Trout, which was a very interesting thing. But we'll touch on that on another one. I think that would take us another long one over.
I just don't know why he calls out the fact that they're going to lose money and then blames it on ticket sales and sponsorships. And it's like, well,
he thinks people are going to come. Yeah, he thinks that's going to get people out there. It's not.
No,
you have to win.
You got to win the games. That's how you get your revenue put back up.
I've said this for a long time. Because the front office can't say that they're in a rebuild because ownership won't say they're in a rebuild. If Arte Moreno came out and said, we're in a rebuild, boom, everything is fixed overnight, an immediate one-word sentence. Rebuild. And just say it. So, Yusei Kikuchi, opening day starter for the Angels. Apparently that is obvious, according to Ron Washington. Jack, Thomas, Zach, let's do a quick run through. Yusei Kikuchi getting the opening day nod. Is it important under any circumstances who gets the opening day nod as a pitcher for the Angels?
Well, I'll make it quick, but a funny story of how that news broke. When we were doing the scrum with Washington, he was talking about someone asked why Kikuchi was on a different, throwing program than everyone else, and he goes, we're just, getting him ready to start opening day. I was like, oh, he's your opening day starter? He goes, yeah, it's obvious. We gave him that contract. So I just liked how matter of fact he was. But at the end of the day, it really isn't a surprise. I mean, they signed him to that big contract, and I think if you look at pure upside, I think he's probably the right choice for this rotation. He could be the best pitcher in this rotation. I mean, you saw what he did with the Astros in his 10 starts with them after he got traded. He had a 2.70 ERA. He dished the fastball, and he was throwing a lot of sliders and curveballs, just breaking balls in general. I think his fastball percentage dropped down to like 30-something% from 55. So if he continues that over into the Angels 2025 season, I think he can be one of the best pitchers on this rotation that the Angels have had in a few years, since Ohtani at least.
Yeah, does it mean anything? I mean, out of the rest of the 162, what it would do if he has a good outing, right? You at least can get the fans off your back for a month, right? Where because as these things go, you win opening day, it's a sellout, everybody's there, you're happy, and then the next few days it doesn't matter. So it'll make people feel better about the team that a guy that they signed comes in, does the job, and you sort of buy yourself some levity for a bit. Doesn't matter in the long run. He's got to perform. But like Jack said, the Houston stint of last year was very impressive, and you just got to hope that the guys behind him can hit. And if he does his job, then they're going to be in position to win games, low-scoring games. But he's got to do his job.
All right, Tommy Lee Murray, what you got?
Tommy Lee. I mean, it probably was going to come down to him and Tyler Anderson, but I'm not surprised it's Yusei Kikuchi. You go out and pay a free agent pitcher that kind of money, the most since they signed CJ Wilson in like 2010, 11, whenever that was. He was great in Houston, 5-1 record, 2.7 ERA, 76 strikeouts, 60 innings pitched. Can't really complain. Looking at the rotation, it's obvious.
Do you think that
it's obvious? Hold on, Thomas just went with the word of the day. I love that. It's obvious. I love that. Zach, go ahead. Sorry, man.
Do you think that? I mean, I don't know how much of this matters, but is part of it maybe satisfying the Japanese advertisers? Post Ohtani.
Chance, yes, maybe. I don't know. I genuinely don't, because they have. I think they still have the sponsorship with the Yakult, which is the milk drink thing. I think
love those probiotics.
I think they still have the sponsorship there. Obviously, Asics was there as part of Shohei, but then Shohei went to New Balance, and New Balance, yes, maybe it could be. I don't know. It's a good question, Zach, and we have two wonderful writers who can find an answer for that. We have three writers, actually.
Well, Ron Washington said that Kikuchi told us that they've been talking since early January of make sure you're getting ready for the opening day start, even though he wasn't officially told until was it yesterday it came out. But they were telling him, hey, be ready. So I think this is just something, they knew when they signed him that this is going to be the guy probably.
No, that makes
and
sense.
I think with Ron Washington too, he's just the kind of guy that's gonna be very blunt and straight up and be like, "Yeah, this is what we're doing," and he'll tell you when you're good and he'll tell you when you suck.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Last thing to note, guys. Thomas, you went out, saw Angel Cervantes on Wednesday. Wednesday sound right?
Yeah.
Warren High
Yeah,
School, right-handed pitcher, one of the top-ranked high school pitchers in the nation. At Warren High School out near Downey, but you saw him at Los Osos and Rancho Cucamonga. Quick thoughts, Thomas. What'd you think of Angel when you went and saw him?
Yeah, I thought he was a good pitcher. Velocity reached a high of 94, but was throwing 92 most of the day. Even he pitched 5 innings, had 70 pitches, I believe. Still reached 92 in the 5th inning, and that's pretty crazy for a high schooler. Good stuff, though. Liked his slider, though. That was pretty nasty. Saw him strike out a kid by hitting him on the wrist.
Yeah, Cervantes expected to be a day 1 draft pick out of Warren. Jack, I hate doing this to you because I know you haven't been out there, but we'll get you out there. Jack, I know you've seen Brandon Compton, among others, Ben Jacobs at Arizona State. Quick thoughts on Brandon Compton and the other guys over at Arizona State.
Yeah, Compton had himself a pretty good weekend to start the season. He had high expectations coming in. He played well in the Cape. I think he was an all-star with the Cape League last year over the summer. Came in, I think he hit 460-something over those 4 games. He hit 2 home runs, got a walk-off double, partly because the guy lost the ball in the sun, but nevertheless, walk-off double. He is built like an ox. When he hit the walk-off double, they ripped his shirt off, and it was just like a house of bricks.
So I've got to just say this, and I think I've finally gotten it out there enough. I walk in the Miami Marlins clubhouse 10 years ago, whatever it is. Giancarlo Stanton passes me by. It's the only time in my life I've ever done a double take on a dude. Like, done a neck break. I swear I checked him out. Like, it was just so impressive seeing that physique. It really was impressive, and I've actually told him that, and he won't let it go. He laughed about it.
Did he blush?
No, I did. I did. I'm naturally red, buddy. Jack, I mean, is this guy like that kind of yoked where you sit there and you say, wow, it's a good-looking guy. There's nothing wrong with saying it. It's 2025. There's nothing wrong with saying it.
And I think also with when Stanton walks by, he's like, what, 6'6", 6'7". Compton's not that tall. He's like, I think 6'1", 6'2", but, he's 225 pounds. I don't think there's an ounce of fat on him.
I believe it.
He looks like a linebacker.
He had a 113 EV on a double that hit the top of the wall. He had both of his home runs at 109 exit velocity. His one home run went, I think, almost 450 feet, 440-something feet.
445, yeah.
445. Brandon Compton, another guy, could be a first-rounder. Isaiah Jackson, Ben Jacobs, also big names over at ASU. Tomorrow, I will go see Corona High School, which is, I have it on record by some people saying it's the greatest single high school roster they've ever seen. Potential for 3 first-rounders, Brady Ebel, Billy Carlson, Seth Fernandez. Also, Ethan Bingaman could go as a 3rd, 4th, 5th rounder as a pitcher or outfielder. Some big names for the next year as well. Also going to see Maranatha and St. Augustine, some projects, high-end projects for draft days, so that'll be exciting. Last thing, and I promise this is the last thing, unassuming of who the number 1 overall pick is going to be, who would at this very moment at 12:04 on Friday, February 1st, would you like to see the Angels pick 2nd overall, unassuming of who the 1st overall pick is? Thomas, you get to go.
That's funny. I was actually going to ask you about this too. It's tough, man. I feel like you'll bring good insight to this, so that's why I really want to ask you it. I feel like, though, maybe they go out and they draft Jace Laviolette. I think Ethan Holliday's probably going to be taken by Washington, regardless of the great weekend Laviolette had, and I think he'll end up being an Angel.
Zach, I'm going to save you for last on this. Jack, who would you take at this point? Unassuming of who's going to be number 1.
How do I mute myself? I think Jace Laviolette's going to be the pick. To be honest, at this point in the season, I have not done a deep dive into the prospects available on the board. I know Jace Laviolette's like the headliner, and I watched him play a couple games just on TV, and yeah, I'm in.
Zach, thought process here.
James Hagen's Boston College.
Attaboy. Attaboy.
That's a hockey draft deep pull for those that don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean, I think based on the little that I've looked through, it's kind of fun that Holiday would get picked by Washington just to have Baltimore and Washington with the two holidays. That'd be fun for everybody. Jace Laviolette, he's an Aggie. My mom's an Aggie. Gig him, take him.
Oh God. I reached out to a director and said, hey, this guy hit 3 home runs over the weekend, blah, 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 blah. What do you think? He says, yeah, dude went 0 for 4. It was Elon. Let's wait it out. So, yeah, Jace Laviolette is obviously one of the top picks. But I don't, as cool as his weekend was, like I said, went 0 for 4 on Friday. When it mattered, it's Elon. We got to wait a little while. I'm going to go Jamie Arnold. I think Jamie Arnold is really one of the special pitchers. Florida State, you might ask me tomorrow, I might say Seth Fernandez. Or I might say Billy Carlson. Might say Brady Ebel. I don't know. But as of right now, I'm going to go with Jamie Arnold.
I was going to say Seth Fernandez.
Arnold. I had a lot of people on Twitter just like raving about this guy. I was actually curious about your thoughts on him.
Some of the best stuff. A little funky in the delivery, probably. For me, I see him paving out a Madison Bumgarner career. That might not be the greatest things of all time, but still, it's pretty good. And just his side, the way he throws from the side, the stuff is off the charts. I think he can throw strikes. I think he's a little bit of a high floor kind of arm. Really like him. Zach, you were saying something about Seth.
Well, if he's Madison Bumgarner, how's his batting average? What does he hit?
You'd be surprised how good pitchers are at hitting, man.
Oh, I know.
They're really good at hitting.
Madison Bumgarner was great.
He was.
How's his rodeo skills?
Very, man, these are deep dive questions I got to jump in on, guys. We have to worry more about what his dirt bike skills are more than rodeo.
Well, so you mentioned Seth Hernandez with Corona. Like, of those Corona guys, do you just for like a SoCal connection for a guy for the Angels to draft, are any of those guys worthy of going number 2?
It's hard to pick a right-handed prep pitcher. It's really hard to pick one. It's just a risky demographic. On that note, Seth Fernandez is probably the best high school pitcher, at least in California, since Hunter Green. And he might be a better high school pitcher than Hunter Green. Hunter Green was a really good athlete. He was a two-way player. But realistically, I think, yeah, this is the best pitcher in Southern California since Hunter Green, and probably the best prep pitcher. And I think Hunter Green went second overall. He went second overall at Cincinnati. So, yeah, if you believe in it, because he's that good. Billy Carlson as well. Brady's just not really a true shortstop, and that's just a knock that's going to challenge him. But the bat's legitimate. Billy Carlson, the bat's real, can definitely play shortstop with the best of them. So, yeah, I could see any of the 3 Corona guys going as high as 2. Brady a little further out, even though the Ebel connection everyone loves Dino, right? Everyone loves Dino. There's nothing wrong with Dino. But, yeah, I could see Seth. I could see Billy. So, I can see either of them. It's just, I think at this point, if I was making a big board, I have a feeling with the right-handed pitcher and also Billy waiting, they'd probably be sitting closer to 5 or 6 on my personal board right now. So, anything else, guys? We can wrap it up. Jack, you got to get out of here. You got stuff going on. Is Arizona State home tonight? I've probably asked you that like 20 times.
Yeah, they are home.
Okay.
But I will not be going. I'm going to Innings Fest.
That's right. Yeah, family's in town. Thomas, you got family in town too, don't you? You got something going on tonight. I remember you had something going on.
Yes, girlfriend's birthday party this weekend.
Well,
got an Airbnb rented, so should be a fun weekend.
Right. It's very important. So we got to get Thomas out of here so he can edit. And then,
oh no, we're good.
Zach, what do you got? Anything fun this weekend?
So every year, my girlfriend and I try to watch all the Best Picture nominees for the Oscars, and we record a podcast that I am behind on editing. So we're gonna crank out some of those this weekend.
Nice. Trying to remember, Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent wouldn't be nominated as a 2022 film.
A couple years old. Yep.
What's the Thomas Chalamet, the Bob Dylan movie? Have you seen it yet?
I'm seeing it tonight.
Okay, let me know. Shoot me a text. Tell me how it is, because that's one that's on my my list. I haven't seen any of them, I don't think. So.
Yeah.
Oh no, I saw Dune 2. Dune 2 was actually.
Yeah.
I was not a Dune guy. Had zero interest in any of those things, and man, changed my mind really fast. Those are good movies.
You need to see him in Wonka.
He was good in Wonka. I like. He was good in Wonka.
It was a great movie. I loved it.
No.
Hugh Grant.
No.
What's his name? Hugh Grant.
Yeah.
Just skip those scenes completely. Outside of that, great movie. Timothy Chalamet's
great.
amazing. So,
No,
Jack,
no reason to exist.
Jack, you go have fun at Innings Fest, whatever they call that thing. Who's headlining? Who's headlining?
I know tomorrow's the Killers. What's tonight?
Ooh,
They have a really good lineup tonight.
I've seen the Killers.
Why can I not pull? Oh, here we go. The headlines Fall Out Boy, but I'm more excited for the Black Keys, Incubus, All American Rejects, Stupid, Neon Trees.
Jeez,
That's a
Yeah.
killer lineup.
Dude.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. That's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a blast. That's from my childhood. That's when I was Jack's age. Zach, have fun with the movies. Thomas, have fun with girlfriend's birthday party, etc.
Thanks.
We'll have a great weekend. So we hope you guys all have a great weekend. Again, you can follow all these guys, all these clowns on social media. Jack Janes at Jack Janes _JANES _. Zach Kavanaugh at Zach Cav ZACHCAV. I got that right this time, buddy.
That's
and
correct.
Thomas Murray, Thomas Lee Murray, Tommy Lee Murray, Tommy Lee. It all comes full circle. You can follow him on Twitter at Thomas _L _Murray. And you can follow me on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it nowadays at Taylor Blake Ward. For Wings on Katella, I gotta keep plugging away that the name is Wings on Katella. But either way, for the Wings on Katella presented to you by the Sporting Tribune, you can check us out www.thesportingtribune.com. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Thomas, what are we playing out for music? Ain't